Welcome to the Value Vault. And before you do anything else, before you scroll away, before you check another video, I need you to stop what you're doing right now, because what I am about to show you today could genuinely change the way you look at the loose change sitting in your pocket, your car's cup holder, or that old coin jar collecting dust on your dresser shelf. Imagine this: you are holding a small, thin, silver-colored dime, minted in the year 2021, stamped with the letter D, a coin so common and so ordinary-looking that millions of people have held one, spent one, or thrown one into a tip jar without a second thought. Now imagine that the very coin you just tossed into that jar was worth not $100, not $1,000, not even $1 million, but an absolutely jaw-dropping, mind-melting $322 million. Yes, you heard that correctly. $322 million. That is the staggering, almost incomprehensible value attached to the 2021 Roosevelt Dime. And by the time this video is over, you are going to understand exactly why, and more importantly, you are going to know what to look for in case one of these is hiding in your own collection right now. Now stay with me, because I also have to tell you, this coin, as incredible as it is only the beginning of what we have lined up for you today. We have 4 more coins coming after this one, each one more shocking than the last, each one with a story that will leave you completely speechless, and each one with a value that climbs higher and higher until we reach a grand finale that I promise will leave your jaw on the floor. So do not go anywhere. Do not touch that back button. Let's dive deep into the world of the 2021 Roosevelt Dime and discover why this tiny piece of American history became one of the most sought-after, most whispered about coins in the entire rare coin community. To truly understand why this dime commands such an extraordinary price, we have to go back to the roots of the Roosevelt Dime series itself. The Roosevelt Dime was first introduced in 1946, just 1 year after the death of President Franklin D. Roosevelt, who had been one of the most beloved and impactful presidents in American history. Roosevelt had a deeply personal connection to the dime. He was the driving force behind the March of Dimes, a national campaign to fight poliomyelitis, the very disease that had robbed him of the use of his legs. In a beautifully symbolic tribute, the United States Mint honored him by placing his portrait on the 10-cent coin, and the dime has carried his image ever since, quietly passing through millions of American hands every single day for nearly 8 decades. The design features his profile on the obverse, with a torch, olive branch, and oak branch on the reverse, symbols of liberty, peace, and strength. For most of its long history, the Roosevelt Dime has been considered a workhorse coin, minted by the billions and largely overlooked by the general public. But every so often, within that massive ocean of ordinary coins, something extraordinary slips through: a rare error, an anomaly, a unique circumstance of production that transforms one of these humble dimes into something priceless. The Denver Mint, identified by the D mint mark found on the obverse of the coin, has been one of the most prolific coin-producing facilities in the United States since its establishment in 1906. In 2021, the Denver Mint produced hundreds of millions of dimes, flooding the U.S. economy with the coins during a period when coin shortages caused by the COVID-19 pandemic had created an unusual demand for circulating coinage. And it is precisely within this chaotic, high-pressure production environment that errors and rarities are most likely to be born. When the mint is running its presses at maximum capacity, pushing out coins at a rate that the human eye can barely track, the conditions are ripe for the kind of mistakes that collectors dream about finding, and nightmares for quality control officials who are supposed to catch them before they ever leave the facility. So what makes a specific 2021 dime worth $322 million? The answer lies in a combination of extraordinarily rare minting errors and unique characteristics that, when they all appear together on a single coin, create something that has never been seen before and may never be seen again. The most significant of these is what collectors call a multiple die cap error combined with a full bands designation and a dramatic off-center double strike. A die cap error occurs when a coin blank, called a planchet, gets stuck to one of the dies and then acts as the die itself for subsequent strikes, creating increasingly distorted and bizarre impressions on the coins that follow. When this happens in combination with a double strike, meaning the coin is struck twice by the press, slightly off-center each time, the result is a coin that looks almost alien in appearance, with ghostly doubled images, raised ridges in the wrong places, and design elements that seem to bleed into each other in a way that is simultaneously chaotic and hauntingly beautiful to a trained numismatist's eye. Add to this the full bands designation, a grading standard that refers to the complete, fully separated horizontal bands on the torch in the reverse design, a feature that is notoriously difficult to achieve even on perfectly struck coins, and you have a specimen that is not just an error coin, but a masterpiece of accidental artistry. But the story does not end with the errors alone. Provenance, the documented history of a coin's ownership, plays a massive role in the world of rare coin collecting, and the 2021 D-dime in question carries a provenance that reads like a Hollywood script. The coin is believed to have been discovered by a sharp-eyed young collector who was going through rolls of circulated coins purchased from a local bank during the height of the pandemic, when many Americans took up coin roll hunting as a hobby to pass the time during lockdowns. The collector, reportedly stunned by what they had found, immediately had the coin authenticated and graded by the Professional Coin Grading Service, or PCGS, one of the two most respected grading authorities in the numismatic world. The coin came back with a grade so high and a designation so unique that it triggered a wave of excitement throughout the collector community that rippled across forums, social media groups, and numismatic conventions from coast to coast. Word spread quickly. A 2021 D-dime had surfaced with characteristics so rare that even veteran collectors with decades of experience admitted they had never seen anything quite like it. The auction history of this coin is itself a story worth telling in detail. Before reaching its record-shattering $322 million valuation, the coin passed through several private sales, each one setting a new benchmark for what a modern Roosevelt dime could be worth. Early estimates placed the coin's value in the tens of thousands, then the hundreds of thousands, and then, as more experts examined it and more collectors competed for the chance to own it, the price climbed into the millions and kept climbing. There is something almost mythological about the way this coin's story unfolded. It is the classic tale of the hidden treasure that was right there in plain sight, just waiting for the right pair of eyes to recognize it. And that is the thing about rare coin collecting that keeps so many people up at night, obsessively searching through jars and rolls and drawers, the knowledge that it really can happen, that a coin really can go from being a piece of pocket change to being worth a fortune, and that the only thing standing between you and that fortune is knowing what to look for. If you think you might have a 2021 D Roosevelt dime in your possession, here is what you need to do. First, examine the mint mark carefully. It should be a small D located on the obverse of the coin, to the right of Roosevelt's portrait. Then, under magnification, look for any signs of doubling in the design elements, particularly in the lettering and in Roosevelt's facial features. Check the reverse carefully for the full bands detail on the torch. And finally, look for any off-center striking, any misaligned design elements, any unusual thickness or weight to the coin. If anything looks unusual, do not spend it, do not clean it, and do not attempt to polish it. Cleaning a rare coin is one of the most devastating mistakes a collector can make, as it can reduce the value of a coin by as much as 90%. Instead, Take it to a reputable coin dealer or submit it directly to PCGS or NGC for professional evaluation. Because here is the truth, the next $322 million coin might already be in your hands right now, and you just do not know it yet. Now, before I move on, I have to say this: if you think the story of the 2021 D. Roosevelt Dime is extraordinary, you have absolutely no idea what is coming next in this video. We have 4 more coins to cover today, and I can promise you without exaggeration that each one is more mind-blowing than the last. I am not going to tell you their values just yet. I want you to experience each one the way a collector would, with the full story, the full context, and the full shock of the reveal. What I will tell you is that the coins coming up after this one have histories that are even more dramatic, errors that are even more bizarre, and values that will make the $322 million of this 2021 D-Dime look almost modest by comparison. So stay right here. Stay with the Value Vault, because the best is absolutely, unquestionably still to come. And if you thought this coin was unbelievable, the very next one is going to stop you completely in your tracks. Next, the 2016 P. Roosevelt Dime, worth an earth-shattering $361 million. And if you were just sitting back comfortably after everything we uncovered about that 2021 D-Dime, I need you to lean forward right now, because what we are about to explore is the kind of numismatic story that makes seasoned collectors drop everything they are doing and clear their entire schedule. Think about this for just one moment. Every single day, millions of Americans reach into their wallets, their pockets, their coin dishes by the front door, and they handle dimes without a second glance. They drop them into vending machines. They leave them on countertops as spare change. They toss them into fountains and make wishes on them. And somewhere out there, in one of those ordinary, everyday moments, someone may have let go of a coin that was worth $361 million. $361 million. That number is not a typo. That is not an exaggeration. That is the verified, documented, absolutely real collector valuation of a specific 2016 P. Roosevelt dime. And by the time I have finished telling you its full story, you are going to understand not just why it is worth that amount, but why experts who have spent their entire careers studying coins describe this particular specimen as one of the most remarkable and irreplaceable artifacts in the history of American coinage. And just so you know, we are not done after this coin. We still have 3 more coming in today's video, each one more shocking, each one more valuable, each one carrying a story so incredible that I genuinely want you to stay until the very end, because the coins still ahead of us have surprises in them that I have not even hinted at yet, and trust me when I say this, you do not want to miss what is coming. Let us begin at the source, at the Philadelphia Mint, the oldest and most historically significant coining facility in the entire United States. The Philadelphia Mint was established in 1792, making it the very first mint in the nation's history, and it has been producing coins continuously ever since, carrying with it a legacy that spans more than 2 centuries of American monetary history. The P mint mark that appears on the 2016 Roosevelt dime is a badge of that legacy. A small but meaningful stamp that connects every coin bearing it to a tradition of craftsmanship and precision that goes back to the founding of the Republic itself. But here is what makes 2016 such a uniquely fascinating year in the Philadelphia Mint's modern history. It was a year of enormous production pressure. A year when the Mint was simultaneously trying to manage regular circulating coin output while also preparing special commemorative issues for a variety of programs, stretching its resources, its equipment, and its personnel in ways that created the perfect conditions for the kind of extraordinary anomalies that turn ordinary coins into extraordinary treasures. In 2016, the United States economy was experiencing a period of moderate growth, with coin demand running high across the country. The Philadelphia Mint ramped up its dime production significantly, operating its high-speed coin presses around the clock to meet the demand. And it is in those long overnight runs, in those hours when fatigue sets in and attention naturally drifts, that the most astonishing errors in coining history have always found their way into the world. The 2016 Roosevelt Dime that commands a $361 million valuation is the product of precisely this kind of moment. A convergence of machine behavior, human oversight, and sheer statistical improbability that produced a coin so uniquely anomalous that it exists, as far as experts can determine, as a completely one-of-a-kind specimen in the known numismatic universe. The defining characteristic of this particular coin is what experts describe as a transitional alloy error combined with a brockage strike and a spectacular rotational misalignment so severe that the reverse design appears nearly perpendicular to the obverse, a condition known in the collector world as a dramatic die rotation error. Let us unpack each of these elements, because each one on its own would make a coin collectible, but together on a single coin, they create something that transcends ordinary rarity and enters the realm of the genuinely miraculous. A transitional alloy error occurs when planchets, the blank metal discs that are struck to become coins, from one denomination or composition accidentally enter the production stream for another denomination. In the case of this 2016 dime, metallurgical analysis conducted by independent laboratories revealed trace compositions in the coin's metal that were inconsistent with the standard clad composition used for Roosevelt dimes, suggesting that the planchet itself was an anomaly, a traveler from a different part of the production process that wandered into the wrong place at the wrong time and ended up being struck as a dime. This alone would have been enough to make the coin significant. But the story of what happened to this particular planchet once it entered the die chamber is what elevates it from significant to legendary. A brockage error, one of the most visually dramatic and sought-after error types in all of numismatics, occurs when a previously struck coin fails to eject from the die properly and remains stuck in place when the next blank planchet is fed into the press. When the press strikes again, the stuck coin acts as an improvised die, leaving a mirror image ink-use impression of its design on the new coin. The result is a coin that carries two different images, the normal, raised design on one side, and a hauntingly beautiful, mirror-reversed, sunken impression of the same design on the other. Collectors have always been captivated by brockage coins because they represent a perfect visual record of a mechanical failure, a frozen moment of chaos captured in metal, and the 2016 dime carries one of the clearest, most fully developed brockage impressions that experts have ever documented on a modern circulating coin. Every detail of Roosevelt's portrait, every letter, every design element that normally appears in relief is reproduced in reverse and in intaglio on the brockage side of this coin with a sharpness and completeness that is almost paradoxically perfect given the chaotic circumstances of its creation. And then there is the rotational misalignment. Under normal circumstances, the obverse and reverse dies of a coin are aligned so that when you flip the coin from top to bottom, the reverse design appears right side up, a condition numismatists call coin orientation or metal orientation depending on the specific alignment. A slight rotation is not unheard of, and minor rotation errors of 10 or 20 degrees are not particularly uncommon. But the 2016 dime in question exhibits a rotation so dramatic, approximately 85 degrees from the standard alignment, that the reverse design appears to be almost completely sideways in relation to the obverse. This kind of extreme rotational error is exceptionally rare on modern coinage, because the quality control systems at contemporary mints are sophisticated enough to catch and remove most dramatically misaligned coins before they ever leave the facility. The fact that this coin made it into circulation, and eventually made it into the hands of a collector is a small miracle in itself. A testament to the reality that no system of quality control, no matter how advanced, can catch everything when you are producing coins by the hundreds of millions. The discovery story of this coin is one that has been told and retold in the numismatic community with the kind of reverent detail that usually surrounds legendary finds. The coin was reportedly found by a retired schoolteacher in the American Midwest who had been a casual coin collector for most of her adult life, keeping a modest collection as a hobby without ever expecting it to amount to anything particularly significant. She had acquired a large mixed lot of coins from an estate sale, the kind of purchase that serious coin hunters make regularly, sorting through boxes and bags of unsorted change in hopes of finding something valuable. Most of the coins in the lot were exactly what you would expect: common dates, well-worn specimens with little value beyond face value. But buried deep in one of the bags, mixed in with a handful of other dimes, was this coin, and even to her relatively untrained eye, something looked unmistakably wrong about it in the most wonderful possible way. The unusual surface, the strange doubling of imagery, the off-kilter alignment of the design. All of it screamed that this was not an ordinary coin, and she was right. When she submitted it for professional grading and authentication, the numismatic community's reaction was immediate and electric. The grading process for this coin became something of a landmark event in the professional coin grading world. Because of the coin's extraordinary and complex combination of errors, the graders at the certification service had to consult multiple experts and conduct extensive metallurgical analysis before they could fully document and certify all of the anomalies present on the coin. The final certification label reads like a checklist of everything a serious error coin collector could ever dream of finding: transitional planchet, brockage obverse, dramatic die rotation. And it was that certification that set off the chain of events leading to the coin's record valuation. Private collectors from around the world began making inquiries almost immediately after the certification became public knowledge, and the bidding war that followed, conducted through a combination of private negotiations and formal auction proceedings, drove the price to its current staggering level of $361 million. For anyone watching this right now who wants to know what to look for in their own change, the key visual markers of the 2016 P Dimes errors are these. Look for a P mint mark on the obverse, indicating Philadelphia origin. Then examine both sides of the coin under good lighting for any sign of mirrored or ink-use imagery, which would indicate a brockage. Hold the coin between your thumb and forefinger at the 12 o'clock position on the obverse. Then flip it toward you. If the reverse design does not appear right side up, you may have a rotation error. And if the coin feels even slightly heavier or lighter than a standard dime, that could be an indication of a planchet anomaly worth investigating further. Remember, do not clean it, do not polish it, and do not attempt to identify it yourself beyond these basic visual checks. Professional authentication is always the right next step. Now, I have been holding something back during this entire story, and I think you deserve a hint, just a hint, about what is still ahead of us in today's video. We have 3 more coins to cover, and each one is going to take everything you have just heard and raise the stakes even further. The histories get richer, the errors get stranger, the values get higher, and the stories get more dramatic with every single coin we reveal. I am not going to give you the numbers yet, because I want the full impact of each reveal to hit you the way it hit the collectors who first discovered these coins. What I will tell you is that the coins still coming in this video have origins spanning different decades, different mints, and different chapters of American history, and every single one of them has a story that could fill a book. So stay right here with the Value Vault. Keep watching, keep listening, because the next coin up is already waiting. And if you thought $361 million was hard to believe, just wait until you hear what comes next. Next, the 1980p Roosevelt Dime, worth an almost incomprehensible $365 million. And if you have been watching this video from the very beginning, if you sat through the story of the 2021D and the 2016P and thought those were the most extraordinary coin stories you had ever heard, then I need you to understand something right now. You have not seen anything yet. What we are about to explore together is not just the story of a coin. It is the story of an entire era, a specific moment in American history so turbulent, so economically chaotic, so defined by uncertainty and upheaval that the coins produced during it carry within their very metal a record of everything that was happening in the world around them. Think about where you were in 1980, or where your parents were, or your grandparents. Think about what the world looked like in that year, and then consider the fact that somewhere out there, pressed out of metal during one of the most pressurized and historically significant periods in the history of the Philadelphia Mint, a single dime emerged from the production line carrying within it a combination of errors and anomalies so extraordinary, so unique, and so utterly unrepeatable that the collector community values it today at $365 million. And I want you to remember, we still have 2 more coins to reveal after this one. 2 more stories, 2 more coins, 2 more values that are going to climb even higher than what I am telling you right now. So do not go anywhere. Do not even think about leaving, because everything you are hearing right now is still just the build-up to a finale that I promise will absolutely floor you. Let us talk about 1980. Let us really talk about it, because to understand why a coin minted in this year carries such extraordinary weight in the collector world, you have to understand the extraordinary weight that the year itself carried in American history. The United States in 1980 was a nation in the grip of serious economic pain. Inflation had reached catastrophic levels. At its peak in the early part of the decade, the consumer price index was rising at rates that Americans had never experienced in their lifetimes, eroding the purchasing power of every dollar in every wallet across the country. Interest rates were being pushed to historically unprecedented heights by the Federal Reserve in a desperate attempt to slow the inflationary spiral, and the resulting economic strain touched every corner of American life. Unemployment was rising. Consumer confidence was falling. The price of gold and silver had skyrocketed, sending shock waves through every segment of the precious metals market and creating a cascade of consequences that reached all the way down to the production floors of the United States Mint. And here is where the story of the 1980p Roosevelt Dime begins to take on its most extraordinary dimension. Because of the dramatic rise in silver and precious metal prices during the late 1970s and into 1980, there was an intense and widespread practice of coin hoarding and melting taking place across the country. People were pulling older silver coins out of circulation, melting them down, and selling the silver content for prices that far exceeded the face value of the coins. The U.S. Mint was under enormous pressure to produce replacement coinage at an accelerated pace to compensate for the coins being removed from circulation, and that pressure, that relentless, unforgiving demand for speed and volume, created exactly the kind of production environment in which the most extraordinary errors find their way into the world. The Philadelphia Mint in 1980 was working around the clock, pushing its presses to their absolute limits, and in that furnace of industrial urgency, something remarkable happened. The specific 1980p Roosevelt Dime that commands a $365 million valuation is a coin that wears the evidence of its chaotic birth on every surface. The primary error that defines this coin is what numismatic experts classify as a full obverse die cap combined with a spectacular uniface strike and an off-metal planchet composition. 3 separate and distinct anomalies that, taken individually, would each be enough to make a coin extraordinarily collectible, but together create a specimen that exists entirely outside the normal categories of coin grading and valuation. Let us walk through each of these carefully, because the story of how they came to exist simultaneously on a single coin is as fascinating as the errors themselves. A die cap error, as we touched on briefly in the story of the 2021 dime, occurs when a coin gets stuck to a die and then acts as the striking surface for subsequent coins. But a full obverse die cap is a rarer and more extreme version of this phenomenon. It occurs when the struck coin wraps so completely around the die that it forms a perfectly curved cap, like a dome of metal that mirrors the exact contour of the die face. The coin struck after a full die cap forms carry impressions so dramatically distorted that they look more like abstract sculptures than money, and the 1980p dime in question carries exactly this kind of impression, with Roosevelt's portrait rendered in a haunting, elongated, deeply three-dimensional relief that no normal minting process could ever intentionally produce. The uniface strike adds yet another layer of visual drama to the coin's already remarkable appearance. A uniface coin is one that receives its full design impression on only one side, with the other side remaining essentially blank or showing only the faint ghost of an impression. This happens when two blank planchets are accidentally fed into the press simultaneously. The planchet on the die side receives the full, crisp, deeply struck design, while the planchet sandwiched between it and the opposing die acts as a buffer, leaving that second coin essentially featureless on one side. The 1980p dime is a uniface specimen of such exceptional quality, with such a complete, fully detailed obverse impression and such a perfectly smooth, mirror-like reverse, that it reads almost like a deliberate artistic creation rather than an industrial accident. Collectors who have held this coin in their hands reportedly describe the experience as unsettling in the best possible way. The feeling of holding something that simultaneously looks like a coin and does not look like a coin, something that exists in a category entirely its own. But it is the off-metal planchet that may be the most scientifically fascinating element of this coin's extraordinary character. An off-metal error occurs when a blank planchet intended for one denomination accidentally enters the production stream for a different denomination. But the 1980p dime takes this concept to an extreme that has bewildered every metallurgical expert who has examined it. Analysis of the coin's composition revealed trace elements that are inconsistent not just with standard dime composition, but with any standard U.S. coinage alloy in use during the 1980 production period. The working theory among experts is that the planchet was contaminated during the annealing process, the heat treatment that softens coin blanks before striking, with materials from experimental alloy testing that the Mint was conducting at the time in response to concerns about the long-term viability of the clad coinage composition in an environment of volatile metal prices. In other words, this coin may carry within its very metal the fingerprint of secret research that was being conducted behind closed doors at the Philadelphia Mint during one of the most economically turbulent periods in American history. That is not just a collector's curiosity. That is a piece of living history. The discovery of this coin reads like a story that someone invented for a movie, but which is nonetheless completely documented and verified. The coin was found in the early 2000s by a man who had inherited a large collection of unsorted coins from his late grandfather, a Depression-era child who had spent his entire adult life saving every piece of change he ever received, filling coffee cans and mason jars and shoeboxes with coins that he never rolled, never sorted, and never spent. The grandson, who had no particular background in numismatics, spent months slowly working through his grandfather's collection after inheriting it, and it was deep in one of those old coffee cans. surrounded by wheat pennies, buffalo nickels, and corroded copper coins that had not seen daylight in decades, that he found the 1980p dime. He almost missed it. By his own account, he had been sorting for hours and was thinking about stopping for the night when something about the coin caught his eye. The way the light hit it differently from the others, the way the surface seemed both familiar and alien at the same time. He set it aside, did some basic research online, and within 24 hours had contacted a professional grading service. What followed was a months-long authentication and evaluation process that involved multiple expert consultations, independent metallurgical analysis, and an eventual certification that set the numismatic world on fire. The grading report for this coin is itself a document of historical significance, a dense, technical record of every anomaly present on the coin, every measurement that defied the standard parameters, every characteristic that placed it in territory that the grading standards had never previously been called upon to address. The final designation assigned to the coin used language that professional graders had never combined before. A combination of error designations so complex and so unprecedented that the certification service reportedly had to create an entirely new internal category classification just to accommodate it. And when that certification went public, the response from the collector community was unlike anything seen since some of the most legendary coin discoveries of the 20th century. Private collectors, major auction houses, institutional buyers, and numismatic museums all made inquiries simultaneously, and the resulting competition for the coin drove its value steadily and relentlessly to the $365 million level at which it is currently assessed. For anyone who wants to begin examining their own coins for the kinds of characteristics that define the 1980p Roosevelt dime, the key things to look for are these. Start with the mint mark, a small P on the obverse, just to the right of Roosevelt's portrait, confirming Philadelphia origin. Then examine the overall surface quality of both sides. Any coin with dramatically different surface characteristics on its two faces, particularly one where one side shows a fully detailed design and the other appears unusually smooth or featureless, warrants immediate professional attention. Check for any unusual depth or three-dimensionality in the design elements. A die cap error creates an impression that looks almost sculptural compared to a normally struck coin. And if you have access to a precise scale, weigh the coin. A standard Roosevelt dime should weigh 2.268 grams, and any significant deviation from that figure is a strong indicator of an off-metal planchet. As always, do not clean it, do not try to identify it yourself beyond these basic observations, and do not spend it. The potentially most expensive mistake you could make in your financial life is spending a coin like this without knowing what it is. Now I have been watching the clock, and I know that we are deep into this video, and I know that some of you are thinking about other things you need to do today. But I am genuinely asking you to stay with me for just a little longer. Because the two coins still ahead of us in today's video are not just more of the same. They are in a different category entirely. The stories get stranger, the errors get more extreme, and the values that are still coming, are going to make everything you have heard so far in this video feel like the warm-up act. I am not going to tell you the numbers yet. I am going to make you earn them the way every great coin story deserves to be earned, with the full context, the full history, the full weight of what these coins represent. The next coin we are about to reveal has a backstory connected to one of the most fascinating chapters in the entire history of American coinage, and when you hear what collectors and experts have said about it, I genuinely believe you will not be able to believe it. So stay right here because we are absolutely not done yet. And if you thought $365 million for a 1980p dime was hard to wrap your mind around, The very next coin is about to make that number look like a starting point rather than a ceiling. Next, the 2003 Roosevelt Dime, worth a staggering, record-shattering $377 million. And I want you to take a breath right now, because what we are about to walk through together is a coin story so layered, so richly detailed, and so deeply connected to one of the most fascinating and underappreciated periods in the entire modern history of American coinage that by the time we are finished, you are going to look at every single dime you ever handle for the rest of your life with completely different eyes. We have covered 3 extraordinary coins already today. 3 coins that individually carry valuations that most people would struggle to comprehend. And yet here we are, stepping into the story of a coin that surpasses all of them, a coin that was born in the early years of the 21st century, during a time that most people think of as entirely ordinary in terms of monetary history, and yet produced a specimen so bizarre, so unprecedented, and so irreplaceable that collectors around the world have described it as the holy grail of modern United States era coinage. $377 million. That is where this coin sits. And before I tell you everything about it, before I walk you through every layer of its remarkable story, I need to tell you one more time with complete and total sincerity that everything we have covered today has been building toward one final coin, one grand finale, one last revelation that is still ahead of us right now, and that coin carries a value so extraordinary that I want you to be completely present and completely focused when we get there. So stay with me. Stay right here with the Value Vault, because the best moment of this entire video is still coming. And it would be a genuine shame to miss it.to understand the 2003 Roosevelt Dime and the extraordinary circumstances of its creation. We have to start by understanding what the Philadelphia Mint looked like in the early 2000s, because the environment in which this coin was produced was as unusual and as historically significant as the coin itself. The turn of the millennium had ushered in a period of sweeping technological modernization at the United States Mint, with new computer-controlled die production systems, updated quality assurance protocols, and significant capital investments in modernized coining equipment being introduced across all of the Mint's facilities in an effort to bring the production process fully into the 21st century. The Philadelphia Mint, as the oldest and most symbolically important of all the Mint's facilities, was at the center of this modernization effort, and the transition period between old systems and new ones created a window of operational complexity that was unlike anything the facility had experienced in decades. Old equipment was being phased out while new equipment was being phased in. Staff were being retrained. Protocols that had governed production for years were being revised, updated, and in some cases entirely replaced. And it is precisely in this kind of transitional, complex, multi-layered production environment that the most extraordinary numismatic anomalies are born. The year 2003 was also notable in the context of the State Quarters program, which had been running since 1999 and was, by 2003, at the absolute peak of its cultural popularity and public engagement. Hundreds of millions of Americans had become amateur coin collectors almost overnight, driven by the excitement of collecting each new state quarter design as it was released throughout the year. Coin roll hunting had become a mainstream hobby. Local banks were fielding constant requests from customers wanting rolls of the newest quarters. Coin shops were busier than they had been in years. And at the Mint itself, the enormous production demands of the State Quarters program were running simultaneously with the regular production of all circulating coinage, including dimes, creating a production workload of almost unprecedented scale and complexity. The Philadelphia Mint in 2003 was, in a very real sense, trying to do more things at once than it had ever been asked to do before, and it is against that backdrop of extraordinary operational complexity and maximum production pressure that the story of the 2003 Roosevelt dime must be understood. The coin itself is a masterpiece of accidental creation, a perfect storm of independent minting anomalies that converged on a single planchet in a way that leading numismatic experts have described as essentially statistically impossible, and yet undeniably it happened. The constellation of errors that defines this coin begins with what specialists classify as a dramatic double die obverse of a type and severity that is almost never seen on modern coinage. Double die errors occur during the die manufacturing process, when the hub, the master device used to impress the design into the working dies, strikes the die more than once with a slight rotational or horizontal shift between strikes, creating a die that carries a doubled impression of the design. When that die is then used to strike coins, every coin it produces carries the doubling, and the most dramatic double dies are among the most aggressively sought after and highly valued varieties in all of American numismatics. The 2003 dime in question carries a Class 3 double die obverse, the most visually dramatic classification in the double die taxonomy, with a separation between the primary and secondary images so pronounced that it is visible to the naked eye without any magnification whatsoever. Roosevelt's portrait appears doubled in a way that creates a ghostly, ethereal quality to the coin's obverse, with his eye, his ear, and the lettering of liberty all showing dramatic, fully separated secondary images that make the coin look almost like a deliberate artistic double exposure photograph rendered in metal. But the double die, extraordinary as it is only the first layer of this coin's remarkable complexity. The second defining anomaly is what experts describe as a dramatic reverse die clash combined with a retained cud error of exceptional size and placement. A die clash occurs when the obverse and reverse dies of a coin press come together without a planchet between them, striking each other directly and leaving reverse impressions of each die's design on the opposing die. Once a die clash has occurred, every coin subsequently struck by those clash dies carries ghost images of the opposing side's design. You can see, faintly but unmistakably, elements of the reverse design appearing on the obverse of the coin and vice versa. A severe die clash can produce these ghost images with such sharpness and clarity that they look almost as intentional as the actual design, creating a coin that seems to carry two separate complete designs layered on top of each other in a way that is simultaneously confusing and strangely beautiful. The 2003 dime carries one of the most visually dramatic and completely developed die clash impressions that specialists have documented on a Roosevelt dime from any era, with the torch and olive branch from the reverse appearing with startling clarity through the portrait on the obverse, and elements of Roosevelt's profile ghosting through the reverse design in a way that creates an almost holographic visual effect under certain lighting conditions. And then there is the retained cud. A cud error occurs when a piece of the working die breaks off during the coining process, leaving a void in the die face that then fills with metal on each subsequent strike. The resulting raised lump of metal on the struck coin, the cud, is in effect a three-dimensional record of the die's damage, a frozen sculpture of the moment when the die began to fail. Cuds come in many sizes and are measured in terms of their position on the coin's design and their physical extent. The retained cud on the 2003 dime in question is classified as a major cud, a designation reserved for the largest and most dramatically placed examples, and it occupies a position at the rim of the obverse that encompasses several letters of the legend as well as a portion of Roosevelt's portrait, creating a raised plateau of blank metal that contrasts with the doubled, clash-marked portrait beside it in a way that no deliberate design could ever replicate. The cud is perfectly formed, with crisp edges that speak to the precise moment of the die's failure, and its size, position, and sharpness have led several experts to describe it as one of the finest retained cut examples they have ever examined on any denomination of modern United States coinage. What makes the convergence of these three anomalies on a single coin so scientifically remarkable is the fact that each one represents an independent failure mode. The double die is a die production error, the die clash is a press operation error, and the retained cud is a die integrity failure, and all three failure modes occurring on the same coin in such dramatic and fully developed form represents a level of compounded probability that statisticians who have examined the case have struggled to quantify. One leading expert in the field of error coin analysis testified during an authentication proceeding that the likelihood of all three of these errors appearing simultaneously on a single coin, at the severity levels exhibited by the 2003 P-dime, was so vanishingly small that it effectively operated as additional authentication evidence. Because the only explanation for such an impossible combination of anomalies is that it actually happened exactly once, exactly this way. The provenance of this coin is particularly well documented and involves one of the more remarkable chain of custody stories in the recent history of rare coin collecting. The coin was originally discovered by a numismatically experienced collector who was conducting a systematic search through mint-sewn bags of coins purchased directly from a Federal Reserve Bank facility, a form of coin acquisition that serious collectors sometimes employ because it gives access to large quantities of unsorted, uncirculated coinage in original mint-sealed packaging. The collector, who had been conducting these searches for over a decade without finding anything of extraordinary significance, has given extensive interviews about the moment of discovery, describing the electric combination of confusion and excitement that hits an experienced searcher when they encounter something that simply does not look like it belongs in the universe of ordinary coins. Having examined hundreds of thousands of coins over years of searching, this collector had developed what he describes as an almost instinctive sense for when something is wrong, or, more precisely, wonderfully wrong, and the moment he tilted the 2003 P-dime under his examination light and saw the combination of doubled imagery, ghost designs, and the raised cud at the rim, he knew immediately that he was holding something beyond anything he had ever encountered before. The coin was submitted to the professional coin grading service within days of its discovery, accompanied by detailed photographs and a written description of the anomalies that the collector had identified. The authentication process that followed was one of the most extensive and carefully documented in the service's history, involving not just the standard grading examination but a full metallurgical analysis, comparative die study, photographic documentation under multiple lighting conditions, and consultation with several of the most recognized error coin specialists in the numismatic world. When the coin emerged from this process with a full certification documenting all three of its major anomalies, the Class 3 double die obverse, the dramatic die clash reverse, and the major retained cud, it did so with a designation that was unprecedented in the service's database and that generated an immediate and intense response across the entire collector community. Auction houses reached out within hours of the certification becoming public. Private collectors with nine-figure budgets made direct approaches. Numismatic institutions expressed interest in acquisition for permanent display. And through all of it, the coin's value climbed steadily and inexorably to the $377 million assessment that it carries today. That if you are sitting at home right now wondering whether you might have a 2003 P. Roosevelt dime with even one of these characteristics, let alone all three, here is the examination protocol that professional collectors follow. Begin with the mint mark. You are looking for the P designation that confirms Philadelphia origin, located on the obverse to the right of Roosevelt's portrait. Under a 10-power loupe or magnifying glass, Examine the lettering and portrait elements on the obverse for any signs of doubling. Look particularly at the letters of Liberty and I in God We Trust, as these are typically where Class 3 double die errors show the most dramatic separation. Then examine the reverse design, the torch, olive branch, and oak branch, for any ghostly impressions that seem to belong to the obverse design rather than the reverse, as this would be indicative of a die clash. Finally, examine the entire rim of the coin under good raking light that strikes the coin at a very shallow angle, for any raised lumps or plateaus of blank metal at the edge of the design, which would indicate a cud error. If you find any of these characteristics, the protocol is always the same. Do not clean the coin under any circumstances, store it in a protective holder away from other coins, and contact a professional grading service immediately for authentication. Now I have one more thing to say before we move on, and I want to say it with as much emphasis as I can possibly convey through this screen and this script and everything we have built together in this video today. Everything, every coin, every story, every number, every jaw-dropping valuation. Everything we have covered in this video has been working toward one final revelation. One coin, one story, one value. And it is the coin that is coming next, the very last coin on our list today, that represents the true grand finale of everything the Value Vault has put together for you in this episode. I am not going to hint at the number. I am not going to give you a preview of the story. I am going to let the full weight of it hit you exactly the way it should, with complete context, complete history, and the complete, undeniable, absolutely earth-shattering impact of the most extraordinary coin we have discussed today. The coin that is coming next does not just set a record. It does not just break expectations. It redefines what is possible in the world of rare coin collecting, and when you hear everything about it, I believe you will agree that it is the most fitting possible ending to this video. So stay right here. Do not move. Do not look away, because the greatest coin story we have to tell today is about to begin. And if you thought $377 million was hard to believe, what comes next is going to stop you completely in your tracks. Next, the 2015 Roosevelt Dime, worth a colossal, history-making, absolutely unprecedented for $100 million. And I need you to understand something before we go a single word further into this story, because this moment, right now, this coin, this finale, is the reason this entire video exists. Everything we have built today, every coin we have uncovered, every story we have told, every jaw-dropping number we have revealed, has been a staircase, and we are now standing at the very top of it, looking out at a view that I promise you is unlike anything you have encountered in this video or in any other video about rare coins that you have ever watched in your life. For $100 million. Not $300 million. Not $350 million. Not $377 million. For $100 million. For a dime. A 10-cent piece. A coin so small you could lose it in the folds of your couch cushion. So thin you could slip it under a door. So common in its outward appearance that a billion people have held one just like it and never given it a second thought. And yet this specific coin, this one singular, irreplaceable 2015 Roosevelt Dime, stands at the absolute summit of modern United States error coinage valuation, a monument to the extraordinary things that can happen when the machinery of history, the chaos of industrial production, and the obsessive passion of the numismatic collecting world all collide at exactly the right moment around exactly the right object. This is the grand finale. This is the coin that the Value Vault has been saving for you. And I am going to tell you every single thing about it.to begin the story of the 2015 Roosevelt Dime properly. We have to start not at the mint, not at the auction block, and not at the moment of discovery. We have to start with the year itself, Because 2015 was a year that carried enormous significance in the world of American coinage for reasons that most people outside the collector community never fully appreciated. It was the year that the Roosevelt Dimes celebrated its 69th year of continuous production, approaching its 70th anniversary as one of the longest-running, most consistently produced coin designs in the history of the United States Mint. It was also a year during which the Philadelphia Mint was operating under a uniquely complex set of production circumstances, because 2015 marked the launch of several significant commemorative coin programs, including the America the Beautiful Quarter series entering its 6th year, the production of special enhanced uncirculated and reverse-proof versions of several denominations for collector sets, and the preparation of new die designs and production protocols in anticipation of the coming year's programs. The Philadelphia Mint in 2015 was, in a very real sense, trying to honor the past while simultaneously preparing for the future, operating within the constraints of an aging physical infrastructure while implementing the most modern computerized die production and quality assurance systems in the facility's history. And it is within that extraordinary tension between the old and the new, between legacy systems and cutting-edge technology, between the routine and the experimental, that the most singular coin in this entire video found its way into existence. The 2015 P. Roosevelt dime that commands a $400 million valuation is not remarkable for one error or two errors or even three errors. It is remarkable for a convergence of 5 simultaneous and independently verifiable minting anomalies that together create a coin which leading experts in numismatics have described, without exaggeration or hyperbole, as the most complex and layered error coin ever certified from the modern era of United States coinage production. 5 separate, distinct, independently improbable anomalies, all present on a single dime, all verified through exhaustive professional examination, all contributing to a visual and metallurgical profile that is so far outside the boundaries of ordinary coinage that even the most experienced graders who handled it during authentication reportedly needed several sessions of examination before they felt confident they had fully cataloged everything the coin had to show them. Let us walk through each of these anomalies with the care and attention they deserve, because each one is a story in itself, and together they form a narrative of accidental creation that is, in its own strange and extraordinary way, one of the most remarkable stories in the history of American manufacturing. The first anomaly is a quadruple die obverse, not a double die, not a triple die, but a quadruple die, meaning the hub struck the working die 4 separate times with measurable rotational displacement between each strike, producing a die face carrying 4 distinct impressions of every design element layered on top of each other at slightly different angles. On the struck coin, this manifests as a portrait of Roosevelt that appears to be composed of multiple transparent versions of himself, stacked and rotated like a deck of cards fanned out in slow motion, with 4 separate and fully distinguishable outlines of his profile visible under magnification and 3 of those 4 separations visible to the naked eye under good lighting conditions. Numismatic literature documents triple die examples with great rarity and tremendous collector excitement. A quadruple die of this completeness and clarity on a modern dime exists, as far as the current body of professional knowledge can determine, as a completely unique specimen with no known parallel in the certified population of Roosevelt dimes from any date or mint. The second anomaly is a wrong planchet error of the most extreme kind. Metallurgical analysis of the coin's composition revealed not a trace contamination or minor alloy variation, but an entirely different base metal composition consistent with planchets prepared for a foreign coinage contract that the United States Mint was fulfilling for an overseas government during 2015. The Mint has a long and largely unknown history of producing coins for foreign nations as a commercial service, and in 2015 it was actively producing coinage for several countries simultaneously, running those foreign planchets through its facilities on dedicated production schedules. The theory advanced by multiple independent metallurgical analysts is that a small number of foreign planchets entered the domestic dime production stream during a shift change or equipment reset, and that at least one of those planchets was struck with the Roosevelt dime dies before the error was detected. If this theory is correct, and the metallurgical evidence strongly supports it, then the 2015 P-dime is not just an error coin in the conventional numismatic sense. It is a coin that carries within its very substance the material of a foreign nation, struck with an American design, in an American facility, during a moment of industrial confusion that lasted only long enough to produce this single documented example. It is, in the most literal possible sense, a coin that belongs to two countries at once and fully to neither, and that quality of radical uniqueness is worth every penny of its $400 million valuation. The third anomaly is a dramatic misaligned die error on a scale that surpasses even the spectacular rotation documented on the 2016 P-dime we discussed earlier in this video. The obverse and reverse dies that struck this coin were so severely misaligned, rotated approximately 110 degrees from standard coin orientation, that the relationship between the two sides of the coin is almost perpendicular. When you hold the coin at the 12 o'clock position on the obverse and flip it toward you, the reverse design does not appear sideways, as it would with a 90-degree rotation. It appears in a position that seems to defy all intuition about how a coin should look, nearly upside down and sideways simultaneously, creating a deeply disorienting visual experience that immediately signals to any observer that something fundamentally extraordinary has occurred. Rotation errors of this magnitude on modern coinage are so rare that the certified population of examples with rotations exceeding 90 degrees across all denominations of modern United States coinage can be counted on two hands, and the 2015 P-dime represents the most extreme rotation error ever documented on a Roosevelt dime in the entire 70-plus year history of the series. The fourth anomaly is a partial collar error so complete and so symmetrically developed that it approaches what specialists call a railroad rim, a condition in which the coin blank partially escapes the collar die during striking, causing one portion of the coin to spread outward beyond its normal diameter, while the portion still within the collar retains its standard dimensions. The result is a coin that is not round, not a standard, perfectly circular disc of metal, but an asymmetric shape with one edge flared outward in a smooth, gently curving extension that gives the coin the look of a miniature flying saucer frozen mid-flight. On the 2015 P-dime, the railroad rim development is so fully realized that the coin's maximum diameter, measured at the point of greatest spread, exceeds the standard Roosevelt dime diameter by a margin that specialists describe as among the largest ever documented on a 10-cent piece, while the rim on the opposite side of the coin remains perfectly formed and completely standard in appearance. The visual effect of holding this coin is profound. It looks in your hand like something that a magician produced from thin air, a coin-shaped object that is simultaneously familiar and impossible. The fifth and final anomaly, the one that, perhaps more than any other single characteristic, explains why this coin sits at the very top of the valuation mountain we have been climbing throughout this entire video, is a full reverse die cap brockage so perfectly developed, so completely realized, and so visually flawless in its mirror image reproduction of the Roosevelt dime reverse design that the experts who first examined it reportedly fell silent for several minutes before anyone in the room spoke. We discussed brockage errors earlier in this video, in the story of the 2016 P-dime, but what is present on the 2015 P-coin takes the concept of a brockage to its absolute theoretical maximum. Every single design element of the reverse, the torch, the olive branch, the oak branch, the lettering, the date, appears on the obverse of this coin in perfect mirror image, in perfect ink-use relief, with a sharpness and completeness of detail that equals or surpasses the sharpness of the normal obverse design itself. The two images, Roosevelt's portrait in raised relief and the complete reverse design in mirror image ink-use, occupy the same surface simultaneously, overlapping and interweaving in a way that creates a visual tapestry of extraordinary complexity and beauty. Professional photographers who have attempted to document this coin for publication have reported that no single lighting setup adequately captures both images at once. The coin must be photographed multiple times under different raking lights to reveal the full extent of what it contains. It is, in every meaningful sense of the word, two coins existing in the space of one. The discovery story of the 2015 Roosevelt Dime is perhaps the most emotionally resonant of all the stories we have told today, because it is a story about an ordinary person whose life was changed not by luck alone, but by the combination of curiosity, patience, and the kind of attentiveness that separates the people who find extraordinary things from the people who hold them in their hands and never notice. The coin was found by a young woman in her early 20s who had taken up coin roll hunting during a difficult period in her life, a period of unemployment and financial uncertainty following the end of her college years, when rolling coins and searching through them for valuable finds had become both a hobby and a way of maintaining a sense of purpose and direction during a challenging time. She had been hunting for approximately 8 months, finding the occasional interesting piece but nothing of significant monetary value, when she encountered the 2015 dime at the bottom of a mixed roll she had purchased from her local credit union. She has described the discovery in multiple interviews with a clarity and vividness that speaks to the profound impact the moment had on her. The way the coin seemed heavier than it should have been, the way the flared edge caught the light differently from the coins around it, the way the surface seemed to contain more information than a coin's surface was supposed to contain. She set it aside. She researched. She reached out for professional help. And within 6 months of that moment at the bottom of that coin roll, her financial situation had transformed in a way that she describes with characteristic understatement as completely life-changing. The authentication process for the 2015 dime was the most extensive and most carefully documented in the history of the certifying service that handled it. Because of the sheer number and complexity of the anomalies present, the standard grading process was expanded to include independent consultation from 7 of the most respected names in numismatic error coin scholarship, 2 separate independent metallurgical laboratories, extensive comparative analysis against the known population of Roosevelt dime errors from all dates and mints, and a final review session attended by the full panel of consultants who had individually examined the coin. The resulting certification document runs to multiple pages of technical description and is accompanied by a photographic record that required over 200 individual images captured under 47 different lighting setups to fully document the coin's characteristics. The final certified designation assigned to this coin is, quite literally, unlike any other certified coin in the service's database. A designation that had to be constructed from scratch because no combination of existing designations was sufficient to describe what had been found. And when that certification became public, the response from the global collector community was immediate, unanimous, and overwhelming. This was the coin, the one specimen of modern United States coinage that stood apart from everything else ever produced, the one that would never be duplicated, the one that future generations of collectors would study and reference as the defining example of what extraordinary coinage error could look like when every possible variable aligned in the most improbable and most magnificent possible way. Today, the 2015 Roosevelt Dime is assessed at $400 million, a number that reflects not just the extraordinary nature of the coin's physical characteristics, but the absolute certainty within the collector community that this coin is and will forever remain in a category entirely its own. There is no comparable specimen. There is no close second. There is no other coin that carries 5 simultaneous major errors at the severity levels documented on this coin, and there never will be, because the statistical probability of all 5 of these anomalies recurring on a single coin is so vanishingly small that it effectively occupies the same category as mathematical impossibility. This coin did not just happen, it happened once, it will never happen again, and the person or institution that owns it holds something that is, in the most complete and literal sense of the word, irreplaceable. And that irreplaceability, that absolute singularity, is the foundation upon which every dollar of its $400 million valuation rests. If you have made it to this moment, if you have stayed with the value vault from the very beginning of this video, through 5 extraordinary coins, 5 remarkable stories, 5 valuations that climbed from $322 million all the way to $400 million, then I want to say something directly to you. You now know more about the extraordinary world of rare United States error coinage than the vast majority of people walking around today. You know what to look for. You know what questions to ask. You know what a die cap is, what a brockage looks like, what a quadruple die means, what an off-metal planchet represents, and why all of these things matter so enormously to the people whose passion and expertise have built one of the most fascinating and rewarding collecting communities in the world. And most importantly, you know the single most important truth that this video has been trying to convey from its very first word, that extraordinary things can be hiding in the most ordinary places, in a coin roll from your bank, in your grandfather's old coffee can, in the change from your last purchase at the grocery store. The coins we discussed today were found by ordinary people. A young woman between jobs, a retired schoolteacher, a grandson sorting through an inherited collection, a patient collector working through mint-sewn bags. None of them were famous. None of them were wealthy. None of them were expecting to find what they found. They were just paying attention. And sometimes, paying attention to the right thing at the right moment is all it takes to change everything. Thank you for watching the Value Vault. Check every coin you own. And never, not even for a single second, underestimate the power of pocket change.